that those employers would be able to indenture labor, and that they would be able to keep the Caymanians from being able to negotiate for higher wages. And I don't know that we have the same need today. I think that the people who have gone into business, the people who are in business, are quite willing to compete for an employee by treating the employee in a good way and by rewarding the employee properly. And that if I can get a good employee, that you shouldn't say, oh, that employee is my employee. You should not be able to possess a person. You see, and we're still there. But you would say, okay, well, I've given this amount of permits to come in because we know we need this amount in this area and that area, and people go up and down as they have to, and as they're needed to move up and down. But the idea that they continue to say the reason why you have to structure a person in one job is to protect Caymanians is nonsense. I have the same thing from the Contractors Association. I noticed it was an article
I noticed that
in
as
the
well.
Compass about you know, basically talking about some companies that have been trying to get bids for the affordable housing. Now, it's interesting that since we have decided that we would like to get these 72 apartments built, that we had the tendering process that was supposed to end on April the 1st, because of course there has been the desire in the country for permanent accommodations, and I would have liked to have done a little bit before my period in office is finished as well. But we extended that to the 4th of May in order to give these contractors the possibility. These contractors end up, rather than giving us a proposal so far, discussing what they can do with the press. Now, you don't discuss it with the press, you discuss it with the potential employer. One of the criticism, of course, that they have is that, you know, they employ local people and they buy local materials and blah, 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 and they come out with this thing that local, and everybody's supposed to be fooling and think that's true. Because even the contractors that are talking about this are foreigners themselves.
Indeed.
Not just the people that they employ, but they themselves are foreigners.
Yeah, when I look at what I read that story with great interest this afternoon.
It's a great proposal.
And my mouth just dropped open. And the only thing it reminded me of is cable and wireless, and how, you know, for years and years as a customer, you would call cable and wireless and you would complain, why can't the rates go down? It is terrible, the rates are too high, you're too hard on us as customers, is there nothing you can do? And they would look you in the face without a twitch, batting of an eye, and say, we cannot lower the rates. Well, lo and behold, competition comes in. And not only do they lower the rates, but they go lower than any of the competition in order to drive the competition out. And all I can say to this is, this proves that you could have done it all along.
Right.
At any particular point in time, cable and wireless could have become a truly good corporate citizen and given fair rates. It's the same with the contractors. At any point in time, they could have...
Not just the contractors. There are a few contractors who call themselves the Contractors Association. The majority came in contractors out there. It's a totally different thing.
The association.
And it's led by people who know the benefit of preserving monopolies.
Exactly. I mean, when I read I was looking at the National Gender Policy, and one of the issues that were in it that were hard hit, especially to women, to families, was the lack of appropriate low-income housing. And I'm thinking, they're writing this and they're saying that even the crimes and the youth gangs that we're seeing on our streets are a direct result of overcrowding and a lack of space and a lack of proper low-income housing. And so when you think of all of this, and you think that these contractors from the association are having to build walled communities because of the growing social problems and the crime, and they could have impacted it in a positive way to lessen it by building what they say now that they can do. It's incredible.
Yes.
It's absolutely incredible.
I've known you since I was a youngster, Dr. Frank, and I know you're a doer. You're a man of action. But I'm glad that you allowed the extension. I think by doing so, you have placed the proverbial ball in their court. It is time now then for the contractors, whoever they may be, to come forward with what we consider to be feasible studies and proposals that we can look at. If it is that they don't, then they shouldn't be heard to complain, because they have been allowed an opportunity. I think
sorry, Lloyd, but sorry, but they're going to complain anyway. I think that's why it's sometimes hard for me to treat them serious. That's one reason why they go to the press and they don't go to the National Housing Community Development Trust with the proposal. They have enough time to go to the press, but they don't have enough time to sit down and actually give the proposals, because they know they will be most likely embarrassed by their own proposals. Because I read between the lines what they were saying, and I'm saying, this is how can they do this and how can they do that? So it's still politics. It's still that idea that let's keep on at Frank about the affordable houses. Let Jill Langlo, let him keep on with this whole thing. But he knows that what was being asked for by Andrew Gibbs. I'm not the technical person. I have a person who is our consultant, who makes decisions with regards to these issues. I don't make those decisions. It's up to him. When they suggested to me, hey, well, let's give them an extension, and I said, okay, well, let's go. We'll give them an extension, because if that's what they're crying for, but then they go to the press to discuss what they can do with the press. Why? I would be there working to get my projects together very hard, night after night, to make sure that I have everything in place. It's a lot of work.
Well, that was the cry, that it was such a complicated process that the time allowed couldn't possibly have been enough.
My understanding of what the technical person was saying, and I asked him to say that, and I didn't get involved in saying it because I don't think that I have the knowledge and the kind of background to be able to say it, is simply this, guys. We're not asking you to come in with this. We just want to know if it's possible. Give us enough information that we can believe that it's possible to work with you at what we consider to be affordable levels.
That's right.
That's all. You know, but to say, oh, cry down in the press and cry me out in the press, and this is just like what the opposition have done. And with housing again, and we had those statistics which I gave you. I don't know if you remember, because we were saying that when we worked on this, that we know that the 1999 statistics said
the 1999 census report that rental properties accounted for 49%, or 7,265 of the total number of households on the island. A further 6% were provided rent-free. 22%, or 3,280, were owned outright, and 23%, 3,300. Where am I?
3,383
owned
with mortgage.
With the mortgage. Thus, nearly one half of the population depended on rented property.
Of the 15,108 persons who lived in rented accommodation in 1999, 21% were Caymanians.
Yes. And this is in contradiction or when compared to at least one of our Caribbean neighbors, and I can't remember where I read this, and we often criticize our Caribbean neighbors and suggest sometimes that we're light years ahead. But Barbados, for example,
Barbados,
there's very encouraging statistics, and I think one of them is that 75% of Barbadians own their own homes in Barbados, and it is clearly a factor, home ownership, and that impinges seriously on community development. And what I think can't be denied, and no matter what happens come May, it'll be a lasting legacy of your ministry and the UDP government that you actually did something,
and
did something about affordable housing, a topic or issue that was paid so much lip service prior to to your taking action when you did. And the thing is, why I say it'll be a lasting legacy is because any subsequent government, UDP or not, should be embarrassed not to continue to look at the project and to continue with programs that seek to address the needs of affordable housing in the community. I think you've started the ball rolling, and there should be no turning back, and indeed it'll be a glowing legacy of your government and of your ministry.
I mean, one of the things, and I really, for me, I take my hat off to Dr. Frank. I think he really read this report, and it impacted him, and he knew he needed to do something about housing. One of the things that they point out here is many were unable to afford decent housing due to high cost of construction and mortgage schemes. Both things Dr. Frank has tackled in his ministry. Not only has he reduced the cost of constructing these homes, but he's now gone ahead and created a mortgage scheme that is affordable.
Yeah, because you got to understand that they pay 8.5% fixed over 20 years. Yes. And we borrowed that money, and people qualify differently. People that would not have qualified at the bank now have access to it.
What do you think were some of the root causes behind previous governments, and there have been many, so we're not pointing any fingers at any particular group of men. They've all contributed to their society and in very positive ways. And I touched on that last night when I said that the people aspect of our development has been neglected, and that it has been neglected in preference to infrastructural development and the passage of legislation that encourage our industries. We're not down crying that, because obviously that is essential and it must be maintained, and that relationship must be enhanced. But what do you think are some of the reasons behind the reluctance to tackle something as fundamentally important as housing? If I might ask a question, you've been asking a question.
Well, I think, Lloyd, and it's a very difficult question, because I don't want to necessarily come down on the character and the charity of some of our predecessors. But I do think that this whole issue of whether or not housing plays an important role in determining social behavior is still on the board. There's some people who still believe that if you give them the houses, they're going to create the ghettos. They're not going to create better lives for themselves. I had to fight that concept. I fought that concept. So even when we had won on a particular level, when I had more or less gotten the movement started, people are saying, well, what are you going to do? You're going to put these poor people in these places together, and they're going to create more poverty. But the housing does not create the poverty. The poverty is created by people being left behind.
Yes.
It's not created by the fact that we go and try to find better accommodations for them to rear their children, because we want to give them greater parental responsibilities, but we don't want to support them. And so bringing social programs into your country is sometimes resisted by people who think that you're a socialist when you are doing these particular types of beneficial things to the community. But my point is, if we don't balance the society, if we don't try to do some things to create harmony, then we will lose the wealth. And we will lose the safety.
Yes.
And so that we have to, within our means, without going into a direct taxation and all that sort of stuff, we still have to use some of the money accumulated to make the lives, or at least attempt to make the lives of poorer people better off.
You would have thought that astute businessmen would follow that line of reasoning, just as we, and I'm sure many of the viewing public or other persons, have followed that. Clearly you have to create the sort of environment that allows your business to thrive, and one filled with disharmony.
Well, you know how many people, how many objections we have now for building these apartments and that side in Eastern Avenue. You know how many objections we got from building them in Fairbanks.
Yes.
There, people don't want poor people to exist. It's unfortunate. But the majority of the people in the world are poor, and the majority of people in Cayman are low-income people. They have to get away. They have to wake up to that.
But you know what that says to me, and I'm just listening to what you're saying, Dr. Frank, and it's stunned me. When people say that the low-income houses, they're going to turn them into slums. And I think that the people that are coming out of the low-income homes are coming from areas like Central, from the swamp, Rock Hole. Are they then saying that those areas are swamp, are ghettos? I mean, what are they saying?
They don't even come in those areas.
What are they saying?
I mean, that's part of the issue.
These are the old Caymanian homes and homesteads.
But poverty becomes something that many people are afraid of. And they're afraid of it because they came from it in the first place. And those of us that have come from poverty never want to go back there. And so I can see the reaction of some professional middle-class people to that, especially those that are not Caymanian, that we have made Caymanian, that are now looking down on those same Caymanians having a place to live. So I don't too much want to go into it, but we knew from the very beginning that Georgetown was the area that most needed it because of the commercial development and the fact that people could no longer pay for property, the fact that their families no longer had the property to divide, and even when they could divide it, there's nothing that they could have done with it. So the point was is that we had to use what available land we could get access to. And this is one of the reasons why filling the land was so expensive, because we got the worst land in the world. The piece on Eastern Avenue is not too bad, but the Windsor Park piece of land, my God, that was terrible to fill, because it's one of the highest points in Georgetown and one of the lowest points in Georgetown. But the point is, if people have no sympathy, so it's not just Frank Macfield they're criticizing my affordable housing, they're criticizing poor people. Well, that's basically what it's all about.
To be truly civilized, or one of the indicators of how civilized a community or a person is, I think an indication of that is how well they treat those who are underprivileged, who are weaker, who are unable to, for whatever reason, meet what we consider to be the standards, the aged, the handicapped, those sorts of sectors of the community. How you treat those people, the persons who have fallen on hard times, just financially.
Single parents.
How you look after. Even animals, I suppose.
Yeah, well,
it is an indicator of your civility and your humanity.
And you were raising, very good points in a very, very rational manner. Like you said, from the time I know you, we created the National Youth Theater.
Yes.
It was in theater. It became the Cultural Foundation. It spawned cultural movement, museum, archives, the bit in the country. When we were doing these things, everybody was turning their nose up on the people that were doing it and the fact that we were doing these things. That's one reason why when people ask me what I've done in my country, I can point to how I have changed things, not all the things that I've done, but I can at least point to where I think I have done something significant to change people's relationship with each other and people's relationship with society.
Those were very exciting times, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it.
And I did use you in one of the pictures in the 1996 campaign. I had a picture of you in the compost. I used that as an ad because I did use that background in the theater as a way of elevating myself, my involvement with boxing, of course, from those days. And so I'm very emotive about my society, my relationship to it, and I'm very, very determined sometimes, especially when I'm challenged by rude, monopolistic people who believe that somehow none of us have any sense. And I take an offense when they think that I do not understand the philosophy that they are living. Affordable houses is more of a problem to them because they don't know what to do with people who are poor.
Yes.
They don't know what to do with people who are poor. And so even when we go and say, look, we're going to create a community development unit that works with the people. We're not just going to create houses, we're creating communities. We're not going to make the mistake that they're made in other countries. But we cannot make people good, but we can give them the opportunities.
Because I believe, not to cut you, that a part of, and I'm not sure how many people actually know this, but it is an all-encompassing program. It's not simply just the affordable housing, because you've tied in with it the Children and Family Services unit and all the other related bodies. So that I believe you even have officers assigned to a particular housing site, so that they might there might be that intervention and that recourse to government assistance, and not just financially. When I say assistance, obviously, whether it be counseling.
Babysitting, while you go out and get a job, helping you to do referrals, develop your attitudes and social skills. And we were supposed to have community centers, little small community centers in all the units. But the hurricane came, and not only did we suffer some destruction, but we had to go into recovery mode. We have
sometimes these things are a blessing in disguise.
Exactly.
It may allow for reflection and perhaps even adjustments that may prove to be ultimately more beneficial.
Well, I think that's what happened. I think this actually has given us the possibility to reflect again, and this is the reason why we came up with the concept of the apartments, which of course is not the same as a house, but we feel that in the District of Georgetown in particular, that it has become more urbanized, and the commercial value of land does not allow us.
We simply don't have the space.
We don't have the space, and so that is one of the big issues. And I like to say too, Lord, when we go into the West Bay community, we see that is very, very, very organized, very wholesome, very developed.
Yes.
Where we find on Eastern Avenue is where we got our big lick. And we have not tried to go in there to correct the problem, because we intend to put these 72, I think, apartments in there. What we want people to understand is that we're waiting for the contractors to come with a plan that will be affordable, because at the end of the day, anybody can build 72 apartments, but they have to build them at a price that people can afford them. And before we started, yes, we could build houses, but the houses that we could build were not affordable to very low-income people. And Lloyd, these people are not getting a free house from government. They're borrowing the money from the National Housing Community Development Trust, and every month they come to pay their mortgage, and over a 20-year period they will pay their mortgage. If they were renting, they wouldn't even be able to rent as cheap as they're paying for these houses in any case. So I don't know what the crime is, because if we should fail to collect the rents, and if we should have a lot of delinquency, and people didn't really pay, then the government would have a financial obligation to the bank that we borrowed the money from. But we protected the people. But so my first thing was to protect the people, not to protect the government, and to protect them from any raise in rent, so that they know over 20 years, even if they get an improvement in their salaries over the next 3 or 4 years, they don't have to pay more mortgage.
I think the duty then falls to you or any subsequent minister to be doubly sure that the project we settle on is cost effective, so that there is that balance between protecting the people, but at the same time, in a sense, protecting the government.
Well, how we protect the government is by putting the social people in there to work to people with people, so that we know beforehand if there's going to be delinquency. If we know that people are having problems, we want them to come to the social workers, social development workers, report it, and we work to try to get them back to work by solving the problem. That's how the government is protected.
And also, when we look at that, you have to look at the fact right now, after Ivan, I mean, the cost of rentals have almost doubled. So this is a double blessing for them at this time, to be able to own a home at a fixed rate.
There's no report in the papers, no report at all in the papers from anybody living in the house. Why is it that no paper? And I've asked Alan Markoff, I say, why don't you go and ask some of these people
and
living in the house and interview some of these people. Why are you sticking with the contractors for? Go talk to these people.
Find out how their lives have been impacted by owning a home.
This was a recent story, so let's give Mr. Markov the benefit of the doubt and say that as a follow-up.
He's planning to go.
As a follow-up.
Yeah, right. Lloyd, you're a great diplomat. We need you. Help me out a little bit here, because sometimes I run short of the patience to have the diplomacy after, you know, when you're going through it, and you know that somehow, and you know, he's written some good things because he has them telling us what they want to do. And obviously it's very important that...
But it's instructive in the sense that the populace now knows that there are these persons
who can do it.
Right. And that and so that at the end of the day, if they're not able to produce, then, as we say, the ball is in their court.
I still think they'll make another excuse, because they're excuse finders. But anyway, we would come to this whole issue of the of housing, because housing is a very important aspect of community development, and a very important way of a country, like you say, showing its civility and its humanity. Because we talk about juvenile delinquency, and the reports suggest, and I believe, that many times, because of the lack of space, we have conflict of authority. You imagine if you have a single woman and 3 kids living in one room, and the age difference between those kids are extreme.
And gender differences.
And gender differences. Yes. It becomes very, very difficult to maintain the kind of social cohesiveness and balance within that particular family unit. But if we say that the family is such an important unit for the society, and we talk about the family, but we don't seem to be talking about poor people's families, just maybe talking about rich people's families.
Talking about the 2.5.
2.5. But we need to talk about families, and those families need to be poor people's families. If they are such an important social unit in terms of maintaining social stability, then it is correct for the government to invest in families and not stand by and say, well, if you can't make it yourself, then you have to drown. Because when they're drowning, we're ending up with all these kids who the government still has to step in and institutionalize and pay a lot more money than we could distribute if we are being proactive by dealing with the issues as we see them.
Yes. I think importantly, and I think it's a fact that that occupies a lot of people's minds, the question of how are we going to pay for and how are we going to afford the sort of social programs that are undeniably needed and required. And again, I think it would be a legacy of the UDP government, just as housing was, that they have been innovative almost in matters of raising funds. Of generating funds. We see that, and luckily so, that they turned around a situation from a deficit to a position in 3.5 years where there was some $80 million available by way of surplus. And we say luckily so because obviously we know that a lot of that has now been spent in the recovery areas, and I would hate to have thought if that performance hadn't been there, what sort of position we'd be in today. But quite apart from that, what we saw them do as well is look to perhaps those sectors of the economy that could afford to sort of make additional contributions, as it were, to the government's coffers. Traditionally, there was, you would raise duties on essential products, but I think the UDP were astute enough to realize that that is finite, and that you can only tax the working man, the essential products, only so much. And there had to be a need to put together, I suppose, those innovative packages. And having said that, there's clearly a need then, I think we all accept, to encourage big business, to encourage merchants, to encourage financial institutions, so that, again, the funds are available to institute social programs. But as an aside, I would have thought, and I would propose, and I have a line of thinking that says that there needs to be a greater public-private partnership. Because if we follow a line of thinking that we provide an environment by way of the financial regulations and the maintenance of good order generally, we provide a platform for which businesses and institutions can make vast amounts of money, then there should be as well that good conscience, not simply by way of charity, and there are companies who do quite a lot and will continue to do a lot, but more importantly in terms of their corporate strategy. What I mean by that is that there has to be people-friendly products. For example, the insurance situation where we find people facing astronomical costs. There has to be people-friendly products, and I must commend some of the companies. I think Fidelity, Heritage, through Scotiabank are working a program whereby a person's insurance premium, what have you, can be financed, because let's face it, that is the only way that homeowners, or certain homeowners, are going to meet those sorts of obligations. So people-friendly products, but as well, I think, as a revenue-earning measure, one would have thought that entrepreneurs need to have more access to capital, because business is capital-driven. And I think we need to encourage that sort of partnership where we're lending institutions and other institutions. It's not enough that the government has to look to their own coffers and find $6 million to encourage small businesses. I think there must be that partnership with the private sector where there's more access. Because the spin-off is that the more business clearly that you create and you develop, then the more the returns for government, to the government coffers.
Well, I mean, that's all very logical, but unfortunately I think that my senses tell me that people are still very selfish, and that part of the role of government is to allow for individuals and institutions to behave in a way that is a little bit more collective, and it is a little bit more socially responsible. We have tried to develop a society here where individual businesses have come and individual businesses have done donations and played responsible roles in our society in terms of assisting with the overall development of the Caymanian society, the small businesses, giving Caymanians jobs and different things like that. But I don't think that although we have called for it, many governments have called for it, and we need to call for it again. We need to have in the back of our mind, though, that if a certain amount of coercion is needed to bring that about, then it must be used, because it is better to have that degree of coercion than to allow the society to disintegrate and for everybody to be in turmoil and for wickedness to take over your society with the violence. But you see,
that is the flip side of it, coercion. That we then increase fees and whatever. It's a no-win situation. That too is fine, because then you make the businesses non-competitive in comparison to other jurisdictions, and it doesn't suit anybody. So what needs to be encouraged is a sort of dialogue between the parties that illuminates that we don't want every time that we need additional revenue that we have to come to you and say, look, we're going to increase the cost of doing business. The alternative is that you make funds available, make capital available, so that there is a general sort of enlivenment of the business industry, you know, that we can get these benefits from.
I mean, I'm understanding what you're saying, and I know what Dr. Frank is saying as well. It again goes back to the fact that people tend not to want to do those things. Why should I give up? If I'm allowed to come in, set up business, and make this amount of money, then why should I change that in order to give to society to do that? So a certain amount of coercion is needed, and we know that you cannot legislate morality. and that's what's needed, the heart. You
The
can't,
charity.
the charity. And unless they find it within themselves, it's not going to happen. But one of the things that we can look at is to look at it and say your very safety now has become an issue, because crime has increased, violence has increased in our islands, and this, again, going back to the report, is linked directly to poverty and unhealthy social conditions.
And people not being able to work in Beulah. Just when we started the hurricane recovery cleanup,
Yes.
and we had so many people come out, hundreds of people came out to work and do jobs cleaning up streets.
Cleaning the streets.
Caymanian people. And you know why, Lloyd? Because they were getting a good salary, a good wage.
A good fair salary.
So it's the low pay. The low pay and some types of dynamics that takes place in the workplace that causes them to say, look, it's better for me to stay home. And I'm saying this to say that if we can increase wages in some places,
Yes.
it would help to attract people, and it would be a worthwhile investment. Now, if your business is too small to pay a better wage, and the government wants to subsidize that in order for you to hire certain people, that might be a wise thing too. But I'm saying it comes a point when you know it's a hard decision. If you use coercive means, and what we call coercive means, we mean from the point of view of revenue, a tax, whether or not that's an indirect tax or not. But through indirect taxation, we are able to coerce revenue. If we create a situation where the companies here have to pay more than the companies elsewhere, the business people here are going to say, oh, we are going to be non-competitive when compared to the other place. But if the other place doesn't do it too, if the other place doesn't take care of its crime and its social problem, the other place is not going to exist either.
Yeah.
But you're going to have people coming from the other place to your place because your place is a safe place.
Yeah, but I think we can make much headway without because I believe in appealing to reason, in that if we realize that there must be that ceiling, that we can only tax these companies and institutions so much.
And we can only tax our people so much.
Exactly.
And
So
if a society does not have money, it's just like anybody who else don't have money.
But if both sides of the coin accept that there is that ceiling,
well,
then the only alternative
if you can give me a model,
but
if you can give me a model of where that has been achieved, I buy that idea right now.
It is. It's very interesting.
Show me a model.
It's very interesting because even when you look at the U.S., I mean, their greatest thing, and one of the reasons why the Republicans are still in power today, really has more to do with finances and economy than Christianity, as some people would think. What happens is that under there, what we say is, look, we're not going to tax you as much. We're not going to have you be any more social conscious than you want to be. One reason why tax havens or offshore develops is the fact that people don't want to be socially responsible. So to become that type of a jurisdiction and then look at the people and say, but we want you to be socially responsible here. Well, why don't we just go back home and be socially responsible? I don't think
we're asking them to really be socially responsible. We're putting forward an argument that ultimately we're saying inures to their benefit as much as it does to ours. Because what we're asking them to do is make those funds available that encourages business.
Wow.
Not only does the encouragement of business means that we no longer have to solely look to you for returns or taxation, but
you think that people you think people are purely rational then, huh?
No, I think there are enough rational souls when it comes to finances, because what you're doing is saying to them, you're appealing to the bottom line.
A typical example is the trust fund that was set up for the hurricane relief. A typical example. And I know that we got ideas, and I know we should use our ideas and our imagination, but we also have to use precedent as well. We have just come out of a very terrible situation. Yes. Where did the money come from? It came from the coffers of the government of the Cayman Islands. Okay? Nobody has broken there are a few people have given something,
yes.
and God bless them,
yes,
and more people should do it. What the Darts just did with the parks, have been doing with the park,
incredible.
That's incredible too. We need more people to do it, and I agree with you. If that happens, then there's no reason to use coercion, but government has to be intelligent enough and brave enough to preserve the balance, because that's important for everybody, including the people who have a lot of money. There are a lot of people in a lot of countries that have a lot of money that had to run with that money. Because the crime and the violence came to the point where they had to run with it, and they didn't use their social conscience and their experiences to know, let's try to deal with this situation.
So you say history is bound to repeat itself?
I'm not saying history is bound to repeat itself. No, I'm saying that we are bound to know history so that we can find compromises, but we should not be led astray by believing that people volunteer to give up any part of their wealth.
No, I wasn't under that illusion at all. I am contemplating formulating a sort of argument that would say to them that to do otherwise,
yes.
financially you suffer.
I know
they're more likely to listen to that argument than to appeal to their good conscience.
Well,
I agree with you.
I can just take you back to 2000 when we came in as a government, 2001, and we had to find a budget.
Yes.
And all the uproar. And all of the complaints, and all of the threats, and all of the begging that we did not put those additional taxes on companies.
But you see,
on thing. But at the end of the day, they have made more.
But that is
and that argument would have meant, like, the other government would have gone back and taxed the people. You know what Kurt Tibbetts them did when they first came in? They took away they put back duties on food stuff. You know, the last thing that I did in 2000 was to bring a motion to remove duties from food stuff.
Successful.
Okay? And
that's why I say, Doc, that the legacy.
The first thing they did was to go back and tax the poor people again.
But that's why I say that it is a sterling legacy as well of the party that realized that was unworkable and that we needed to look elsewhere. But as coercive as you had to be, and all the bogeyman connotations, if you tax them more, they're going to leave and what have you. And we actually see that, as you say, there have been increases in registered companies.
Sure, and as a matter of fact, we got a lot of people that have been given Caymanian status.
Yes. But that's encouraging.
So where are they supposed to, why are they going to go? If this is the society that they have chosen, this society they live, but we are the one who have to bring them the message. That's why we're in the government.
Yeah. And we do that.
And that's exactly what we did.
By dialogue, because I think we can achieve much more in that. For years we were reluctant to do it. We did it. We see the benefits, and I think that should encourage us to continue that dialogue.
One thing that we must also look at with the United Democratic Party was, once they made that initial increase in taxes to the business community, they then put into play their special skills of good fiscal management.
Indeed.
So that in the 3.5 years, they have not had to go back and tax anyone.
Yes. Right. I think, but I mean, let's not jump away from the argument that if you're going to run a country, you have to have money, because everybody ducks that one. And I am saying that the United Democratic Party, especially under the leadership of the Honorable McKeever Bush, have negotiated with the business community, have informed the business community, have dialogued with them, and have found no need to go back to them for additional monies. But we have to also understand that the poorer people in this country cannot continue to pay for the standard of living in this country that people are able to come here and enjoy. If people in other countries escape it, they eventually be faced with it. I was in Provo, Turks and Caicos. They're developing fast. They had a policeman that was shot. Okay? They have serious crime issues and developing fast. And you have to be really, really, really careful with this concept that if you all we're going to do is to try to just be cheaper than someplace else. Well, maybe you're inexpensive, you're cheaper than the other person, but at the end of the day, you can't supply people with what's important for them, which is their safety.
Well, you see, I think knowing some of the figures, and I'm indebted to a player in the financial industry who I had the privilege of speaking with when I got involved in this process, sort of picking his brain. And he was in fact a caller, again, on Talk Today, God forbid, when certain figures were outlined that show you the sort of leeway that we have in terms of the room to play with. It is estimated that the hedge fund industry, and we know that Cayman is a big hedge fund jurisdiction, our share of it globally amounts to hundreds of billions of dollars. The total contribution by the financial sector, which includes hedge funds, to our economy was in the region of 60 million. So that if we say that hedge funds is but a part of that 60, we see that we're talking perhaps 10 to 20 million. Yet under management, there is these hundreds of billions. So I think that there is room, without getting non-competitive and without impinging on their ability to do business and not making our jurisdiction unattractive, there is room for perhaps a slight improvement in the contribution, and that is just hedge funds. Mutual funds are much more, we're not talking lending institutions, nothing like that.
The thing that I'm making, and I don't really want to continue on this particular level because I don't think that we are going to be able to solve that. Your opinion, I think that I'm using a little bit, not just some opinion, but some experiences here. Not what somebody said, but what I have experienced in terms of sitting down and talking to people in a very, very, very controversial type of situation, having to raise revenue for the country, having not wanting to go back to the poorer people to get more revenue. Understanding of course that these companies have grown, that people come here and they do have a good lifestyle. That's why they want to stay. That's many of them wanted Caymanian status. Understanding that although I don't want to directly go in and talk about any direct taxes whatsoever, that there are contributions that can be made from companies that they have. But knowing that there are individuals who work with these companies, who are partners in these companies, who want to take home a bigger share, who want to compete with the Joe Blow who's made it. Let's keep up with the Joneses. Let's not sacrifice one penny out of our pockets. So there is a certain selfishness that exists in all societies, and part of the role of government is to have the right to bridge that gap, especially at critical times. That's why police have special powers. That's why politicians and judiciary, those types of institutions have. It is not saying that the economic institutions play less of a role, but there are certain institutions that represents everybody. Businesses help everybody at the end of the day, but they help the persons who own them first of all and most of all. And so there has to be some social balancing. I don't think the same way that the Honorable McKeever Bush thinks about these things, because I'm coming from a different perspective, and I don't think the same way that you necessarily think about it. I think that we all think together, and it helps us to come out with a viable solution. But the opposition is now saying that they do not intend to create direct taxation. They intend to depend on indirect taxation. But yet everybody is suggesting how we're going to solve all these problems. So is somebody blind about the realities, or somebody hiding the truth, or what it is? Government has the right to do what is best for everybody. When the time comes, they have to act for everyone. But we know that taxation is not something that make the leaders of industries happy. But we also know that when you have a crime wave that needs to be solved by perhaps bringing in more money to pay for more equipment that is more capable of protecting them, that they can be persuaded, and they should be persuaded by their own minds. But if they are not persuaded by their own minds, and they're the ones who are capable of donating towards it, then they're not the only people that have to be protected. The poor guys in the poor neighborhoods also have to be protected, and that is where government has to come in.
The age-old question, who are we developing for? It raises its ugly head.
We have to do that.
If
anyway,
there isn't that balance.
Anyway, I think we have had a nice little conversation between the two of us. It goes to show the three of us. Sorry, it goes to show that we don't have no moles, and that we are all thinking, and that we are willing to think, and that we're willing to allow people see us even have different positions. I'm happy that we have been able, with all of the politics, that we have been able still to have the kind of public eye that we show that we normally have, which one is that is really fruitful in terms of exploring points and
intellectual discussions. It's interesting.
But if I have 1 second, I just want to talk a little bit about the thing about corruption again, just to really get it at home. The fact is that the PPM has decided, through their political advisors who are not from the Cayman Islands, I can assure you of that they should stick to one point. Because everybody who analyze politics know that if you stick to one point, you drive it into the minds of the people, you say the same thing over and over and over and over again, somebody will believe it. And perhaps more people than you would have thought. So they're not going to talk about things the way we've talked about things. They're going to be talking about corruption. They're going to be talking about our characters, and we would like you to be encouraged to see the full issues. Think about the candidates that we're offering you in the District of Georgetown. Think about Lloyd Sampson. Think about his intellect. Think about the fact that he's an independent thinker. He thinks well, he's young, and he's willing to be committed to the development of these islands. And I'd like you also to think about Beulah, who's my sister, and we have had a lot of interested people saying, oh, well, why you run your sister? I said, the reason why she's running, and I'm encouraging her to run, because I think that she has something to offer that I don't have. But we don't want you to vote for her because she has something that Lloyd doesn't have. Or you vote for Lloyd and don't vote for me because he has something that I don't have. Or vote for me because I have something that Lloyd doesn't have. We want you to vote for the entire ticket.
4.
We want you to vote for number 2,
3, 4, and 8.
Actually, I'm 4. Lloyd's 8, Beulah is 3, and John Henry Ebanks, who's not here, but I'm quite sure that he's tuned in, and he wasn't here because this incredible virus has been going around.
And John, we just hope you feel better soon.
John, we hope you feel better.
Yes,
and
we missed you tonight.
We missed you tonight. We know you would have been an incredible part of our conversation. Well, since we are going to be wrapping up in 4 minutes, Beulah, anything special you want to say after having been here all 2 hours?
Yeah, that's true. I guess I just want to say that it really is a pleasure to be able to go, come into the homes of all of the people that Cayman Islands. It's a privilege to be running as a candidate in Georgetown, and it will be my privilege to serve you when elected on May the 11th, along with my running mates. And
could announce a meeting in Windsor Park too.
We will certainly do our best to continue good governance, open government, accountable government, and we will not be here to develop any scare tactics. We're not here to tell you about how terrible the world is. We're here to tell you about the solutions that we have to change the things of the world that impact you negatively.
No. I think I'd end off with just, I guess, where we started, encouraging all the proponents, all the players in this political campaign, no matter what role you play, to act responsibly and encourage the viewers and the electors to stay tuned to all the platforms, listen to the discussions. I'm happy that we were able to have this one tonight because I think it allowed you a better insight into us as candidates than does the political platform that you're accustomed, I suppose, to seeing us on. But stay tuned. We're, I think, in Windsor Park next. On the Tuesday the 19th, we're in Windsor Park having a meeting there in the community. We'd like people to come around and hear us. And
we haven't been boasting too many of our accomplishments tonight. We've been trying to deal with some other issues. But if you watch the program tonight, it will be repeating on Sunday, this Sunday at 9 o'clock. So tell your friend, watch it. Watch it.
Straight from the heart.
It's straight from the heart, so they can call up and watch it. And I guess I know that the Honorable McKeever Bush was doing something important tonight, and I just want to reassure you that I am not running for leader of the country. I am running to be a minister under the Honorable McKeever Bush. I think that we have come to a situation where we need to choose a leader, and I do believe that he is a better leader than where is it now? Than Mr. Kirk Tibbetts. But I had a little cartoon. Have you seen my cartoon? Which one should I use? This is a nice little cartoon, and I just like you to go home. Where should I put that? Here. What?
Right there.
Here?
Right there.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that Mr. Bush is a much better leader. Good night from Public Eye, and God bless you.
Public Eye has been brought to you by the New Vision Movement.
For reservations, call your local travel agent or Cayman Airways 949-2311.
It's a treat. No low pricing each and every week. Bargains galore at all 3 stores. At Foster's Food Fair, your dollar buys more. No low prices, that's what we are. Friendly faces, that's who we are. When you walk in our doors, you will see at Foster's Food Fair we care for you.
Okay. Any other business?
As a matter of fact, yes. My son is doing so well in school, I had to prepare a presentation to share with you. He's alert in class, full of energy at playtime, and he's still strong even after school. What's the secret? I give him Milo with Actigen E. It helps your children release all day energy from the food they eat, so they'll be just like my boy. Any questions? Milo, now fortified with Actigen E. That's my boy.
This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
Watch Gospel Insight Saturdays and Sundays at 6 a.m. on Cayman 27. The Royal Bank of Canada and Cayman 27 are pleased to bring you the 2005 essay competition and a chance to win one of 3 college passport saving accounts worth 500 CI. Deadline for the essay is April 30th, and awards will be given out live on Daybreak, Monday the 16th of May. Further details are available at all schools. Take advantage of technology and benefit from the latest banking convenience with Royal Online. Royal Bank of Canada, supporting our local community and making your day easier with Royal Online.
In the heart of Grand Cayman, broadcasting from the Television Center, this is Cayman 27.